even during Aladdin and then onto Lion King, we were more exposed to story. Like you would go into story meetings. We would be in those meetings to say, okay, these are the cuts that we're doing. We're going from a single shot to a double shot to a wide angle, and we're going to pan over. So you're getting to see all of that. And I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. You're actually seeing the building blocks of what I'm about to animate.
Brian Smith here, and welcome to the Dream Path Podcast, where I try to get inside the heads of talented creatives from all over the world. My goal is to demystify and humanize the creative process and make it accessible to everyone. Now let's jump in. Michael Surrey is on the show. Michael is an animator who cut his teeth in animation working on the Care Bears series in the 1980s. But after seeing Disney's The Little Mermaid, Michael knew he had to animate for Disney. At Disney, Michael worked on the most iconic films in the history of animated cinema, including Beauty and the Beast, which was the first full-length animated movie to be nominated for an Academy Award for Best Picture. No other animated feature was nominated for Best Picture until Up received that honor nearly 20 years later. At Disney, Michael went on to animate the title character in Aladdin, Timon in The Lion King, one of my all-time favorites, Clopin in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Rourke in Atlantis, The Last Empire, and Buck in Home on the Range. Given Michael's success at Disney, it should come as no surprise that he was named one of the 50 most influential animators in Disney studio history. After 18 years at Disney, Michael began working for Dreamworks, where he worked on Shark Tale, Tangled, and the Oscar-nominated How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, among others. Last year, after working for Dreamworks for 10 years, Michael was hired on as creative director at Spire Animation Studios, where he's working on some exciting projects, including an animated feature called Trouble with Danny McBride. In this interview, we cover a lot of ground, including how he broke into the world of animation, what it was like animating on films like Aladdin, The Lion King, Shark Tale, and Tangled, what he loves about being an animator versus what he considers to be the grind of the job, and why he feels more inspired as a creative when he's involved in the story aspect of animation as opposed to simply drawing characters. So let's jump right into my chat with Michael Surrey. Thanks for being on Dream Path Podcast, and welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
So, Michael, where are you located right now?
I am located in Santa Clarita, California.
Yeah, and how close is that to Los Angeles?
Let's see. It's probably about, I guess, on a good day, maybe 30 minutes. On a bad day, an hour, hour and a half.
You're pretty much right in the hub of the action down there, right?
Yeah. Well, it's on the fringe of like on the northern part of the city. So usually where I'm at is sort of the point where you're driving north on the 5 freeway. You go, okay, I'm out of Los Angeles, because you see Magic Mountain on the 5 and you go, okay, I'm out. Now it's the rest of California.
Yeah.
So I'm right on that fringe, right on that edge.
So you're from Canada, right?
Originally, yeah.
Yeah. What called you to California and specifically Los Angeles?
Well, it would have been 30 years ago. It would have been Walt Disney. Walt Disney Studios called me here. I applied for their training program and got rejected 3 times. From multiple Disney studios. One was twice in Florida and once here in California. And at that point, I was based in New York, going to school, and I wanted to get into the animation industry big time. And Disney had just released, I think, Little Mermaid at the time, and that was sort of like, okay, I want to go there because that's where they're animating. And so I applied, eventually got in, and sort of, it was a weird situation, not to go down the rabbit hole too far, but it was a case of me applying everywhere to get into the animation industry from school. I got accepted for Universal to go work in London. So I signed the contract because everything else had rejected me. So I went, all right, I'll sign this contract. Went back to Canada for Christmas, came back and saw that I received a letter from Disney saying, congratulations, you're welcome to the training program. And I was like, but wait a minute, I just signed a contract for Universal. So so I had to call like Disney and say, look, I really want to be with you, but I signed this contract. And back then, before the world of emails and, take a photo and send it to me, I had to like mail it to them and, and say, this is what I got. And then they said, okay, you can honor your contract for 3 months. And then you should be able to leave and come to us. And I went, okay.
That was cool.
Yeah. So, and I have family, and my mother and father are English. So I thought, well, this is a good excuse to go to England and hang out with relatives. So I did that for about 3 months and then made my way to Disney. And I was there for about, I guess over 18 years, 20 years.
So let's go back to the 80s and Little Mermaid. What was it about that film that inspired you to get into animation?
Well, at that time, animation, at least feature style animation, was really kind of dying. In Canada, coming out of college in 87 at a Sheridan College, there wasn't a lot of, if you wanted to animate, you'd have to travel for it. Meaning most of the people I knew in school were either going to Europe, anywhere in the world, but it just felt like the United States or Canada wasn't the place to do feature animation. So it was a surprise when I saw, first was Great Mouse Detective, was like, oh, wow, Disney just did a brand new feature animated movie. And it was kind of a nice mix for me because I'm a bit of a Warner Brothers fan. So Great Mouse Detective had a little bit of a Warner Brothers feel to it, but it was done with the Disney quality. And then about, I don't know my timeline too well, but maybe 4 years later, all of a sudden Little Mermaid comes out and I'm just like, wait a minute, like what's like a musical, animated musical? And may it be just because I was living in New York at the time and I'd gone to Broadway musicals, and the musicals in general were just pretty popular. They were, I think I went and saw the Broadway play Chess and Phantom of the Opera. And I was just like going, wow, what a great structure for an animated movie or for telling a story. And sure enough, Disney's like making Little Mermaid, which is kind of in that world, right? So right. I was just blown away by that. And I think that's what sort of drove me to say, okay, I need to get there. If I'm going to do this for a career, I think that's where I need to go.
Yeah. So it sounds like the musical part of it, which for me as a fan of Broadway, that's what brings me into the story so emotionally. Yeah. It sounds like that was a big part of why you were attracted to feature animation.
It was, I think, unknowingly. I really didn't have like this burning desire to be animating musicals or doing that. There was just some perfect chemistry, I think, between what Howard Ashman had done with Little Mermaid and was doing with Beauty and the Beast. That is just a great storytelling tool. I mean, it was just so well. At the time, I had no idea what it was. I didn't understand the structure of like why I liked it. I just thought, oh, that was cool. I went, wow, it just flowed real nicely, and I didn't know why until many, many years later that you just go, well, it's part of it's a great tool to use to forward your story, meet characters, understand characters, and be entertaining all at the same time. And it was, I mean, as the history will show, the model worked pretty well for Disney for the next 10 years.
I think they've done okay with it.
Yeah, they managed to nail it, as they would say.
So where were you when you were working on Care Bears? That's an interesting line.
You went deep in me. Oh my gosh. Yeah, Care Bears was my first official animated paid gig, was Care Bears. And I was at Sheridan going into my senior year. So it was a summer job. And up to that point, my summer jobs, like a lot of people, you work at a gas station or, you work at your father's, garage or something, it's washing dishes. But then I actually, wait a minute, I got a summer job doing what I've been going to school for. Okay. So and it was Care Bears. And it was, I thought, oh, how hard can that be? It's Care Bears. It's all look the same, right? But then you sit down and you have to do it, and you just realize, oh my gosh, I can't draw these characters like the way they want me to. And it was a massive sort of learning curve for me. But I had what I would call the Glen Keane of Canada was Charlie Bonifacio, who was super helpful in teaching and nurturing, kids like me coming out of school, like, does this look good? And he goes, oh, no, it looks great, but you just need to, and his drawings would be beautiful over mine. I'd be like, oh, okay. Oh my God, how do I do that? And it was just an amazing experience, but it was just for the summer. But I bought my first car with Care Bear money.
Wow.
Care Bear money, I bought my first car. So it said to me, wait a minute, animation can actually, feed your life. So maybe that's not a bad career choice.
I'm guessing that at the time you had no idea how culturally impactful the Care Bears were, or did you have some idea of that?
No, not at all. I knew that there was a movie, and I knew that they were, I get at the time, I'm guess 1920. And Care Bears was not for, it's for my nieces and my nephews, I'm not watching Care Bears at 20, but
right.
But it's, I was just, I guess the popularity of them was just massive at the time. And hence the reason they did a movie, or maybe they did more than one, but they did TV shows. I don't know how many.
Yeah. Figurines and toys. And it was a very, very popular series with my sister and a lot of the folks that I knew. I was, in 86, I was probably 14 at the time. Mm-hmm. As my younger sister was still into it. But that must have been a formative experience for you to be thrown into such a popular series at such a young age. Yeah,
I guess if I really knew how much of an impact it was, it would have been a little bit more terrifying. But I guess ignorance is bliss, I guess, in that moment, because I was just like, okay, again, my brain was all like, I can't draw this bear like he can draw the bear. I got to do that. So my vision and my scope of what I was doing was so focused on the drawing part of it. And it was very surreal because, again, this is the first time I'm doing anything professionally, to see your drawings. And back then you're just doing poses, and you send them, they're being sent to Korea. I think they're being animated in Korea at the time. So they're following your poses. So all you're doing when you watch the TV show actually being put on TV is you're just trying to see if they used your pose. And if you see it, you're like, oh my gosh, that's mine. That's mine. So as a kid coming out of college or still in college and seeing your work on TV, kind of, and your name flying by real fast,
mm-hmm.
You can go, oh wow, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool experience. I don't really know how to frame it, and more than it was just sort of like surreal.
Mm-hmm. When did you know that you were talented at art and drawing? Like at what age?
Talented, and I guess I knew I was pretty good at it, meaning, could do it or love to do it, was maybe like in elementary school, only because like maybe between classes or moments where I would draw something. And I was always drawing. As early as I can remember, I was always drawing. But there was a moment, I think, where I was drawing something, and I don't know who it was in my class. Says, oh, that's really cool. Can you draw that for me? Oh, yeah, okay. And then three or four other students, well, can you draw? I want one of those. Can you? Then it was like, in school, it was like a big deal to get an ink pen. Back then it was like you learning how to write. But if you learned how to do cursive, the teacher said, okay, now you get a pen, before a pencil. So I was like, oh, we got a pen. And then he was like, oh, can you do a drawing on my arm, like a tattoo? And I was like, sure. So I'm like, people's care. I don't know. I can't remember what it was, but just drawing stuff on their arms because they just thought it was cool. And
that's like, awesome. Get your own little prison tat operation going on.
Tagging my fellow students.
Yes. So you have this innate skill, this talent for drawing, mm-hmm. and a love for it sounds like, and then you go to school for it. Mm-hmm. What did you learn in school that made you a better artist? And did you think, in hindsight, do you think that school really was imperative, art school, for you to become the animator that you are today?
Yeah, it was probably everything for me to become the animator that I am today, because um, going into Sheridan, I didn't even know how to animate. I had no clue how to do it.
So you're talking about a distinction between drawing and animation.
Well,
Yeah.
they're one and the same. Back then, they're one and the same. I mean, well, I shouldn't say that, because there are a lot of people's drawing abilities that are certainly not what you would consider, you know, the Disney style or the classic, being able to draw characters realistically, or, anatomy being very like on the nose. It makes sense when you watch a character move around that, oh, that looks like a real person, because there's plenty of other types of animation that was being done and still is, that show different kind of drawing styles, flatter, more graphic styles. Um, but for me, it was just, I knew I loved animation. I literally had no clue how to do it. I didn't know, like, how do you do it? Like, what do you draw on paper, but how does that paper move? Like, how does it move? I just, there was nothing about it that I knew. The only thing I had in Canada was, there's on Sundays, Disney would have their Wonderful World of Disney. And I would see they had a documentary thing where they showed a guy animating. And I was like, oh, what are those holes at the bottom? He's got like paper like with holes in it. And he's like, wait a minute, how's that? Where do you get that paper? And again, I had no clue. So I was literally taking nails and taking a hole punch and trying to figure out, like, watching it, like, how do you do it? And so I had no idea. So I learned everything on how to animate. And also, as an artist, I'd never taken life drawing classes before. So that was a whole world to me that I just never had before, like just learning how to do anatomy, learning how to draw the human figure.
Okay.
It's one thing to sit there and just draw from your brain, from your memory, but it's another thing just to sit there and look at somebody and go, okay, well, that he's 7 heads high, and you measure using your pencil, and you hold it up, and you're going like this, and you're putting your thumb, and you're saying, okay, he's that big, okay, 1, 2, and you count down, and just all the stuff that was involved. I just had no knowledge, but it was just so exciting to me because I didn't know it, and I was learning, and
right,
it became everything.
So it sounds like there's a pretty big learning curve when it comes to the mechanics of animation that you really need school for. I mean, you need classes and instruction to know how to do that.
Yeah, I think so. I think today there's so many ways to learn. Kids can learn from multiple platforms now. But art school does offer that ability, because there's something that you're paying for somebody to be a mentor to you. If it's not in drawing, it's in painting. If it's not in painting, it's in animation. If it's not in animation, it's in story or writing. Like, there's just, you can't, that's a hard thing to sort of not, I think, to skip over that, unless you're super talented, like just off the charts. I mean, from a lot of us, and me, my journey's been not easy. I mean, it's been a struggle to get through, where I had to, sort of, as I said earlier, having to apply over and over again. It wasn't like I applied once and they went, oh yeah, she's a super select. Yes, bring him in. Oh my God, why? Quick. I wasn't that guy.
It's like, keep this guy out, please.
Yeah, I was like banging on the door, like, hey, can I? No, not now. Okay, I'll come back. Okay. So schooling, I think, is important. I think it helps a lot to sort of get your brain, at least for me, it allowed me to think about what everything is in this new world of doing this stuff that I loved when I watched it on TV. Just what's involved, like, how do I do it? How do I navigate through this world of the physical act of doing the job, and then how do you get a job? So
yeah. When you made your way to Disney and you were working on, for example, Beauty and the Beast, sounds like your first major feature animated film at Disney. How similar or different was animation at that time from, say, the old Mickey Mouse films that we remember from like the 50s, and the Snow White film, the old kind of dated looking Snow White film? But how different are the techniques from the early 90s from back then Were they the same, basically the same, or were they dramatically improved and modified?
Not you'd think with all that time that it would have evolved, but they almost said if it's not broke, don't fix it. And it was not that different. The biggest difference that sort of crept in, certainly, which is a massive help, was the ability to animate something on paper. And then what you want to do is you want to see it. So you would, back in the 50s or even the 40s, it's like animate, you got a stack of paper, you give it to the camera people, they shoot it, you wait like a day, and then they show it to you the next day on a moviola, and you're looking at it going, oh, I made the arms move too much. Okay, I got to fix that. So there's a day, 2 days. Now or back, even when I started, it was like, I'm going to go shoot my scene over a computer. This is like 1990, but we still had something there where you could test it and look at it real quick in the minute, and then be able to change the timing and go, okay, I got to move the arms more. And then you go back and you do it. I mean, that was pretty much the biggest technological jump that went on, because it was all very much paper. Got to draw. You got to learn how to draw. You got to learn how to draw better. It wasn't, back then this is all pre-CG. I mean, there was some CG introduced in other departments, but not in animation yet. Not character animation.
So how time consuming was it to create, say, 5 seconds of animation of one or two characters interacting together? Like how many individual drawings are we talking about, and the time, and also the horsepower that it takes in terms of like the number of people that are working on that scene? I just have no concept of really what is going on to create that 5 seconds of screen time. So
you are like me, just before I went into college. That's exactly what the questions I was asking. Right. For 5 seconds, the math here is going to be horrible, but it would range. You would be able to do 5 seconds, maybe a couple weeks.
Whoa!
If you're good, if you're like in rhythm and you're moving, maybe a couple weeks, and that's probably somewhere in the area, at least for me, maybe over 2,000 pieces of 2,000 drawings, but probably about half of those would get thrown away. So you would draw it and go, no. And then you go, oh, let me try it again. No. Oh, that's it. And then you would do it. You look at it and go, this isn't working. Let me throw that out. So it would take you, maybe there's about 1,200 drawings for about 5 seconds, and it'd take you about a couple weeks to do. And that's wow. Me starting it. Then I'm giving it to somebody who either might help me fill in some drawings to help solve some sort of problems with drawing his shirt or some overlap kind of thing or whatever. And then okay, that looks great. Then it gets passed on to another department who has to redraw everything that I did, but clean, beautiful, nice and clean. And that's what usually would be the one that would be seen on the screen, and they would colorize that one. So it gets done twice. And that process, changed slightly, because they used to draw it, then they would ink it, and then they would, paint it. So
So drawing is more like a sketch maybe, and then the inking is maybe like a more defined drawing?
Yeah, it's the best way to put it is it's a sketchier line. An animator will do a sketchier line. And that would be something that you'd say, okay, the scene works fine. And you would have a person called a cleanup artist, and their job is to know what the character looks like finished. So they would be able to know that, okay, I just drew a jacket with 3 buttons, but they'll draw the buttons exactly the way they're supposed to be. They'll make the jacket look exactly like the model was intended to, because a lot of times animators might just go, okay, here's where his jacket is, and he has a pocket here, and I'll draw, a pocket and move it around properly, but it maybe won't have all the details on there. So they're the ones that go in there and make it look really pretty.
That's interesting. I never thought about that concept of, when we see a live action film and we see someone with a jacket on where there's a pocket, that jacket is always going to be a jacket with a pocket. It's never going to change. And, with animation, you have to be cognizant of every single detail to be consistent throughout the entire film.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of reasons why, like when we would design early stages, when you'd be designing characters, you know, you get all crazy and you go, oh, I'm going to have him have this and he's going to be wearing this and it'll look like that. And everybody will go, oh, wow, that looks great. And then eventually they'll start going, well, it's going to be really hard and time consuming to do that with, you know, having to match that in animation. And is there a simpler form of that? And then sometimes you're limited, you know, in 2D animation, you were limited by that kind of things, complexities of what a shirt looked like or hair or things like that. You had to be a little bit more graphic with it so that it was easier to manage going down the line. Because every step down the line to getting to the screen, there's somebody there that's going to go, okay, wait a minute. You gave him curly hair. I've got to match all those. I got to draw all those curly hairs, and move. Like it'll take someone forever to do. So they do the math on that and go, okay, to do that kind of hair, it's going to look like it's going to take us 6 months to just do that. We can't do that. So you got to go back and simplify those curls into a more graphic. Okay. And that happens all the time where you pull back on the lines. So they would measure it by line mileage. So they would say, oh, this character has like a whatever degree of line mileage, meaning it's just going to be time consuming to draw everything that's needed to make that character look like that character.
That makes sense as I look back on Disney films, why the hairstyles are the way they are. You know, even going back to Little Mermaid, where, you know, her hair is I think it's pretty straight and long. And,
yeah, it's a bit curvy, but it's easier to manage as far as drawing. But it's not like it's like, yeah, she's not like got a like full curly hair or, you know, complex. Yeah. You know, it's manageable. You push it to the point where you can think, okay, we can do that. So that's sort of the. And I think as we started wanting to do more with characters like that, that's when you start going, well, is there a way we can do that? As technology around us was starting to get more apparent, you just go, well, is there any of that we can use? Can we use any of that? Is any of that going to help us? You know, and that wasn't until years later.
So what were you thinking when you were working on Beauty and the Beast? Were you aware of the fact that Disney was about to go on a tear in terms of like the most impactful, culturally, massive films in the history of cinema? I mean, this is just an incredible run you had on Disney.
I was completely, I don't think any of us had really that much of a clue that it was going to do what it did going through that 90s run. I think it's could be said about any sort of art form or, you know, sports team or, you know, anybody that goes on a run and just was able to sort of hit it. It's just, you just look back and you go, why was that? Like what happened? It was, and it's a lot of times you just think it's just because everybody was just so committed to doing it. And maybe there was just, everybody was there like I was, which is just like, this is like, they're all into it. They just really wanted to do it. And because animation is not something you just do for money or do for, you know, you got to love it because it's tedious. It's a lot of work. And I think there was just a mass group of people there that just loved it. And I just can't believe anybody really said, yep, this is going to be a hit. We're going to make a lot of these. Yep. These are going to be like $100 million movie, you know, Oscar nominated. Yep. That's going to happen. Like, I think again, the mermaids and the things sort of set the ground for that run, because it opened up an audience of people that went, oh, wow, that's kind of fun. I like watching an anime movie with music. It was great. It was kind of fun to watch. And so Beauty and the Beast coming out, classic story, Disney's name on it. Howard Ashman, Alan Menken. It was just like, so perfect storm, right? I mean, it was just, you know, again, all that is oblivious to me. I'm just sort of like, I gotta learn how to draw this candlestick. How do I draw this candlestick? You know,
that's great.
So focused, you know.
That is awesome. So at the time, let's move on to Aladdin too, because it looked like you went from animating assistant to animator on Aladdin.
Yeah.
How cognizant were you of the story aspect of animation at that point? Because you mentioned story as another element of, becoming a fully formed animator when we were talking about schooling, or, the school you went to. But for me, Disney films, I think, are known for their stories. I mean, the animation's great, but the story is what really drives everything that is happening. And so here you are, very talented animator, obviously hired by Disney to work on their most important films. But how tuned in were you to the story at the time when you're trying to draw that candlestick, or you're trying to get, Aladdin's hair right, or his magic carpet, or whatever? I mean, that has to be kind of a type of a myopia where you're just laser focused on doing something exactly right, but you're doing it in the context of a bigger picture, a story.
Yeah. Well, yes, and it is very much that, because your first priority in starting at the Walt Disney Company, just in general, was that I just want this to be right. If this is right, then I can really look at other things. I can probably relax a little bit, and just take in other aspects of where I'm at. And the stories aspects of it weren't really apparent to me at the beginning. I mean, they were probably there, but I was just so like, I need to draw this candlestick. I need to draw Aladdin right. How do I do that? So it's the physical act of getting your brain and your hand to coordinate to be able to do it the way it needs to do for the movie. But meanwhile, I'm probably still like going, oh, why is Aladdin going into this parade? Or why does he meet Jasmine here? Don't worry about that. I need to get him to look right. It started about Beauty and the Beast near the end and the beginning of Aladdin, where I started to ask those questions to myself. Right. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't openly going, hey, why is Aladdin, going into that parade? That doesn't make sense. Like I'm not that person yet. And I don't have the whereabouts of me to realize, like, hey, I've been here 2 years. I got some questions. I'm just not that guy yet, right? I'm just too busy just going, wow, I'm at Walt Disney. These people all worked on these movies that I loved. Mm-hmm. So it was getting the confidence to sort of get there. Each movie kind of showed me the next sort of door to sort of like, oh, wait a minute, I want to know more about that process. How does that work? And not to jump too far ahead, but after Aladdin, even during Aladdin and then on to Lion King, we were more exposed to story. Like you would go into story meetings, because the process would be going into the department layout, which does all the background stuff, draws it all out for animators. But we would be in those meetings to say, okay, these are the cuts that we're doing. We're going from a single shot to a double shot to a wide angle, and we're going to pan over. So you're getting to see all of that. And I was just sort of like, wow, this is kind of cool. You're actually seeing the building blocks of what I'm about to animate. And then confidence, and, just feel more comfortable to say, don't you think it would be a good idea to have a shot of so-and-so here and not cut to her or whatever? And they go, oh, good idea. And people are drawing, and then they're just taking little drawings and they're putting them up on the wall, like, they're just holding up a drawing like this. Is this what you want? Yeah. Okay, put that up. And it's very organic, which was super exciting to me, because it was all these artists in a room and people's heads are down and they're going, what about that? No. Okay. All right. Let me try this. And then they pin it up and you're moving stuff around. And I was like, man, what a cool job this is, just to be able to just be so free flowing with, because animation's, it's so singular, right? You just sit at your desk and it's listening to the track of whatever you're animating, and it's just you and paper.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of a different world for me.
So was that a brand new approach for Disney, or was that just you being brought into a process that they had already been doing, and you were new to that process?
Yeah, I was new to that process. That had been in place for way back, even when Walt was running the show. I mean, that's just been the process where you have your story and you'd bring animators in, or story people, and you would just put it up on the wall and pitch it. And then people will go, it doesn't make sense. Why would you do that? And okay, well, do you have something better? Yeah, I do. How about this? And that's been what Disney, the great thing about the Disney films, story-wise, was that they were very open and to making it better. So if somebody had an idea, you'd have to sometimes fight for it, but if the idea worked, they would consider it and put it in. And I think it's that back and forth and that very organic way of working, I think, is why the stories got stronger from the concept stage to the screen. I think it just got to be a better product because they were willing to all go, okay, well, let's not get too precious about this idea. Let's really make this work. And they spent the time to do it.
When you were animating Timon on Lion King, did you know that Nathan Lane would be the voice of Timon?
At the beginning, I think, if I remember correctly, he was one of the voices that they had mentioned, and I can't remember the others. No, I'm running a blank on it. It was by the time I think I was sort of locked in to work on it, I think he was sort of the voice.
Yeah. Did you have his voice though? I mean, did you have his voice for Timon in your head as you were drawing?
Yeah. Once I started, again, the process sort of when animators were being brought on, sometimes some of those things have already been started. So they may have done like some quick recording sessions with Nathan and Ernie Sabella, who did Pumbaa, who were on Guys and Dolls on Broadway at the time. So they would maybe have them just do hey, can you just, like an audition-y tape, but it would be something. So hey, we did this recording session with Nathan and Ernie. Here's something for you guys to listen to. It's not in the movie, but here's an idea of what we're looking at for these characters. So you would have that in your head as you're drawing and designing the character, which was, a helpful thing because you're trying to get, if I can make the character a meerkat kind of look like Nathan, then I'm thinking the audience is going to buy a little bit more that this voice is coming out of this animal. So you steal what you can.
Yeah. It's an interesting concept of like how important is it that you know what the voice actor looks like and sounds like when you're drawing, because I've seen over time on Disney films, for instance, on Shark Tale, it was intentional that the animators made the characters look like the voice actors in some of the characters, at least.
Yeah, I think yes, because the caricaturing of a character to look like whoever is doing the voice, I think was helpful. Certainly, if the voice was a famous person. But if you go back and you look at, like again in Disney's Great Mouse Detective, and Ratigan, the villain, was Vincent Price. Now Ratigan doesn't really look like Vincent Price. I don't think Glenn, when he animated it, was thinking. He was feeling who Vincent Price was, but I don't think he was purposely trying to find elements of Vincent Price to put in. Not to say that he didn't try. In the development stage of the character, I'm sure they went, oh, let's give him a little mustache. Let's try making him look like, and they just would probably go, nah, it looks it looks weird. And then Glenn, being as good as he is, he's able to sort of take the essence of what he's hearing of that actor, that actress, and be able to make you believe whatever he's drawing, they work together. They are together. And that's a massive talent if you can do that successfully, because it's not to say it's an easy out, but I mean, if you're going to caricature a famous actor and everyone's going to go, oh, that's so-and-so, that's definitely so-and-so. Because I can see it in the eyes and the
right, or Angelina Jolie's lips.
Yeah. You can tell that it's her, and then you hear her voice, and you go, "Oh, okay, it's her as a fish." I get it. So there is elements of that I think everybody tries to put in there, but how far you go with it, is it like a literal caricature of somebody as a human person being put into a fish body, or a lion, or a dog, or whatever, but sometimes it's catching the essence of who they are, and let that just sort of, be the voice. I mean, it's, was it Craig T. Nelson who does the voice of, Mr. Incredible.
Mm-hmm.
You just hear the voice and you go, I've heard that voice before, and it works so well coming out of that guy, but he looks nothing like Craig T. Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
You buy it, it's just proper casting, I think, to really get the match that makes it work with the character that you're trying to develop. So when it happens, it's magical, though. It really just makes you just go, ding, that works.
As you may have noticed, there are great resources and advice mentioned in all our episodes. And for many of them, we actually collect all of these resources for you in one easy place, our newsletter. You can go to dreampathpod.com/newsletter to join. It's not fancy, just an email about each week's episode, featured artists, and resources to help you on your journey. Thanks. And now back to the interview. So as you're clipping through all of these amazing films, tell me what your, the parts of your day that you loved the most, and the parts of the day that you could really do without. And the reason I'm asking this question is that folks that may want to get into animation, I want to know for their sake, what the grind is. What are the things that are, maybe bugged you about the business, and the things that really you loved doing every day?
Oh, well, the loving part will be easier to, and it's bigger. I mean, it's way bigger than, the pros are way bigger than the cons of being an animator in my mind. Well, I'll put it this way. Every day I would drive into work, I never felt like I was going to work. Never felt like I had a real job. Back in, like, I guess would have been about an Aladdin area that I remember just driving into work one day and just I was caught in traffic, and the people on the left and right of me, I would see somebody shaving. I would see somebody putting makeup on. I'd see somebody reading something, like they're reading like some report that they have to do for work, and then some guy adjusting his tie, and he's driving, and I would just be like, oh man, those guys have real jobs. They really go to work. I mean, I don't think I go to, is my job a job? And I remember just driving in going, it doesn't feel like a job. And all I could think is like, man, I'm so happy I'm not sitting in that car, because I could go, t-shirt, didn't matter. There was no crazy dress code for going into work as an animator. And it was really all about the work. So not to say that they were all relaxed and like, come in whenever you want, whatever you want to do. No, it wasn't that. It was just more like, we hired you, you can do the work, you're talented enough, so just do it. And then they trusted you to do that. And so on the plus side of it was that I just never felt like I was at a real job. And the hard part of that is that you never want to leave it. It never leaves you, right? So even if I drive home at 6 or 7, you're sitting at home, and when my kids at that time, I had 2 kids and at that time, and you're playing with them, but the whole time you're like thinking about, like, so if I moved his arm, it just doesn't shut off, right? I mean, it's hard to shut it off.
Yeah.
And you could bring your work home with you. So sometimes if you just get stuck and you're just like, oh, I don't know. I just can't figure this out. I'll just bring it home with me. And then you'd leave it, you'd wrap up your paper, your scene. And they would come in, like, if I may, I know it's a podcast, but so it would come in like this, right? A big cardboard.
Yeah.
You'd wrap this up, and you would come home with this, and you put it on the table, and then you play with your kids or eat dinner. And then I would look at it and say, I need to go over there and open that up. And then you start working again, and it just doesn't shut off. So can be a bad sign of it, because, you need to have that break. I didn't understand that early on. Certainly you need to have that time away from it. The grind of it can be hard. I mean, certainly when you're working for Walt Disney and there's demands for it to be like, we need this to get done by this date. We have to get it in the theaters by here. And there's a lot of moving pieces. And if it falls behind a little bit, it can get not ugly, but people, everybody's just wanting to get this stuff done. And you fight that urge to just go, whatever. Okay, there, it's done. You happy? It's done. Right. Put it up there. There, I'm finished. You want to do that, but then there's a part of you goes, no, I can't do that. So you get caught in this battle of fighting yourself you're tired, the hours get long near the end. Again, I only know animation as a creative outlet as far as the process. I'm sure music, any kind of creative outlet is kind of the same. You think, oh, I've got 6 months. So I'm just, I'm going to figure out what I want to write. I want to figure out what music I want to play. And let me really explore. And you take your time, and then you realize, oh, shoot, I've got like 8 weeks and I got to deliver all this work. And then you start cramming.
Yeah.
Animation is kind of the same thing where you just think, oh, directors will like go, hey, you have his arm go up. Can you just make his arm like maybe his arm doesn't need to go up? Can you animate it with not his arm up? And you go, okay. Yeah, you know what? Maybe if you bring up his other arm. And then you go, okay. And you're doing all these like small little like changes, and the scene will take you weeks that you should have got done in like 5 days. But that's at the beginning of the process. By the time the movie gets, near the end, you're now cramming like, oh, we got to get that scene where she's going to cry and say she loves her mother, and we need to get that done now. And, it becomes such a grind because everybody's trying to get everything finished by the end.
It always takes longer than you think it's going to take.
Yeah, definitely. But it's definitely getting to draw for a living. My mother didn't believe that it was a good idea to do it early on until I showed her my first paycheck. And then she was like, oh, okay, that's all right. You can do that then.
So tell us about your recent career move. What inspired you to make such a big change?
So going back and forth between Disney and Dreamworks over the last 30 years, I moved from animation into story eventually. I just said, okay, I just want to do story. And I found it to be way more rewarding. For me, it was just that when you're animating, like I was saying earlier, you get so focused on the moment, like, how am I going to move him across the room moment, where stories like, well, why are we even in the room? Like, who are the people in the room? Where is the room? What does all this mean for the overall story? So that sort of drew me to wanting to be in that department. And I think as time goes on in your career, and having done this for over 30 years now, it's not that it gets stale or boring. It's more that the big thing for me is that sometimes you get into these plateaus where you're not learning. And people assume because you've been doing it long that you already know it, so you don't need to learn it. Like, there's nothing for you to really learn more. So they know you're talented. They know that you can do the work, but they just feel like, well, why don't we just let you do the work? And they don't push you, and they don't want, not that they don't want it, but they just feel like you're great where you are. So if there's a need for you to want more, there's not really an avenue for that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it got to a point where I had met Brad Lewis, who's the co-founder of Spire, on How to Train Your Dragon 3. He came on as a producer at the end. Great guy, very, very easy, quick. One of these people you meet real quick and you just go, I really connect with him. I like him. He's a great guy. And as a producer, he was fantastic. So I moved on to another movie, and he was going to leave the studio, and he goes, oh, I want to talk to you about something I got going on. And I went, oh, yeah, sure. Months pass, nothing. And then I get this email, hey, you want to meet me for a drink? I want to talk to you about what I'm doing. Sure. And he goes, oh, it's going to be this. And he had this real rough skeleton of what Spire was going to be. And I was just like, oh, okay, that sounds, do you have anybody lined up? He goes, no, not yet, but I'll let you know. It was all like this, like mysterious sort of every 3 or 4 months, I would get this call out of nowhere from Brad. And he finally had gotten together with PJ Gunsager, who's our CEO, and his partner, and they figured out a model of how to make a studio and what he wanted. And people like myself, Sean Krause, and group of others that all have like what I do, which is a lot of experience in the business, but maybe want to have a bigger piece, like want to be able to let our experience, be used, and sort of try to make a group or a studio situation where we can make a movie that's again, it's not like we're trying to reinvent the wheel here, but it's just, you're just trying to find a way, like, I want to learn more about how to make an animated movie or film in general. And this is a platform which is going to allow us all to play in sandboxes we just didn't get a chance to play with. And it's been, for that, it's been great, because it's been giving us a chance to talk with people and meet people and look at stuff that a lot of times in the process of making an animated movie that we inherit, we don't really get to see or be a part of. So that part is super fun, And so now I'm learning again, and it just feels like, oh, this is really exciting. It's nice to get up and, okay, I'm not going to be drawing Care Bears today. It's like, oh, okay, good. What are we looking at? Oh, it's something new. Oh, wow. How'd you do that? And
right. Well, I mean, everybody evolves as an artist and as a craftsman. And it sounds like maybe Disney was not the place to become, everything that you could become. And I mean, this may sound a little diminishing, but I kind of look at like Disney as such a huge organization that, how could you not feel as you're walking through like the Disney store and you're picking up, this little stuffed animal of Timon, and how could you not feel a little bit like left out of, you know what I mean? Like you were part of that. That's special. But at the same time, you're kept in this role of, this is your job. This is what you're doing. And there's 1,000 other people that are doing other things that you're not going to be part of. But when you're part of Spire, it sounds like you're going to have your hands in a lot of, the creative director. So you're going to have your hands in a lot of different projects in various roles. And maybe that's a more fulfilling prospect. I don't know.
It is. I mean, it's just, it's a sandbox, again, to use that term, is just that we just not everybody gets to play in, and you can't have everybody. It needs to have only a select group of people have to be at the top. You can't have, nine chefs. You just need one. One guy's going to make and he's just going to dictate who's going to do what. But
right,
and that's fine. And I think this is just a platform. I think that's, to Brad and PJ's credit, they've been able to grab people from all these different studios, and they're all great people. Because again, you're going in kind of blind. I mean, during the pandemic too, you're like, there's some people we work with I haven't physically ever met. It's just through Zoom. We were so new, and you're hiring people as we're going. So it's been a little bit like surreal in a way of like, oh, these are my colleagues now.
Right. I can't think of a better time to start an animation studio than 2020. I mean, for a lot of reasons, but I mean, primarily, it has to be a new renaissance for animation at this point, because it's just an easier production to put together.
Well, and I think the model's been there for a long time. It's just people, certainly the big studios, ignore it. The idea of working remotely, or not having to, it's okay for so-and-so to live in, Ohio. We can talk to her, be able to just connect with her. It's not such an alien thing to them to do that on a large scale. And it's shown that they can get movies done. You can still get the movies done. Is it ideal? No. I mean, moving forward, I think as we start to get a physical space here in LA, that the pandemic has sort of said to us, well, wait a minute, what do we need as a physical structure? Like, what is our model going forward? We want to have a space where we have, certainly our leadership is in a one area so you can connect physically with one another. But we also don't want it to be what we've all experienced, which is that 9 to 5 or 9 to 9 grind 5 days, 6 days a week. We don't want to put people in and bring them in and make them just have to work like crazy like that.
Burn them out.
Yeah, exactly. And it's what happens. And there's so many options now with people in the animation world, from streaming services to online to theater to TV. There's just so many different companies that an animator or an artist can go, you guys are burning me out. I'm going to go work over here. And, over there means nothing because they're still sitting in their house, right?
Right.
It's an easier sort of like, I'm done with you guys. I'm going to go work over, at this other company, but they're just sitting in their same chair and different faces pop up. But I think the culture that we're trying to develop is a place of that you're able to come into work and not be like, we trust that you're going to do the work. You know what the work needs to be done. If you need to go home and work because your family, you have family-ish things you need to take, go ahead, go home. Like, we're not going to be like, well, where are you? How come you're not at your desk?
Right. So that sounds like a very progressive work culture that you're aiming to do. And I respect that, because I'm a trial lawyer by day, and in terms of the work-life balance, there is none in my business.
Gosh,
but there has to be, though, if you look at how we connect with our children and how we raise our kids and connect with our spouse, you need that time away from work. And you also need an employer who understands that. So I'm glad to hear Spire's thinking about that.
Yeah, I think we're understanding, I think, because we have the luxury, because we're moving slowly into this company as far as expanding and building it to making movies. It's the understanding that, many people will say, oh, it's amazing. I work at home. I get so much more done at home. Well, yeah, because you're not racing to get to your office, and then you're not probably working for the first hour. You're probably checking your sports scores and what have you, and then go, oh, well, I'm going to go down and get a coffee. And then you go down and get a coffee. Oh, hey, Bob, how's it going? Oh, yeah, talk. Oh, well, I better get up. I got to, and that hours has passed and you haven't worked. That's just the natural flow of a work day in a workplace. But not to say we want to get rid of that. But the problem is, when people work at home, there is no off. You have to be pretty disciplined, right? Because depending on your setup, a lot of people don't have the luxury of having a space, a door, an office to put their work area in. It's in their house. So it's always there. And it becomes a little bit of an easy thing to trigger if you want to. So we're just going to be very mindful of that and try not to get people to feel that we're going to look to hire people that are solid people, young and old, and not be looking to beat them down and make them sort of hate the experience. Because I think all of our experiences has been positive for the most part, but we've also seen the negative, and we want to be able to pay it forward in a way of showing all the good stuff that can come out of being on part of an animated team.
So is one of the sandboxes at Spire that you are currently in the Trouble project with Danny McBride?
Mm-hmm. That would be one of them.
Can you tell us about that?
I can tell you that the idea came from Brad. It was one of the ideas that he had going into, I think, just wanting to make a company to make animated movies. And it was just kind of an exciting, easy to get idea in a way that certainly has been in trouble. I'm sure everybody has been told you're in trouble by their parents. And then there's an idea of you're in big trouble. So there's levels of trouble, right? So I think as an idea, that's a very relatable concept. So you take that and then make it into like a physical place, like a Wizard of Oz, or so it actually exists. So if you get into trouble, you're going into trouble.
Right.
And that's our story, is sort of based around a boy who, like many boys and kids, they don't know better, or they get into trouble, and then he really sees that there is a place called trouble. And then you sprinkle in the idea of Danny McBride and his type of humor, and just who he is as a comedian and an actor. You just go, wow, this is going to be really funny. I mean, it has potential to be a funny, not edgy movie, but I think it's sort of allowing us to play a little bit, on the edge, but know that we're not going to cross the line at all. We're not going to be trying to do anything that's going to make, parents and kids freak out or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think it's just a nice combo, because getting to work with him briefly in some of our meetings, and his writers have just been great. They've just been really collaborative, and they've just got great ideas on how to build this world and make it unique. Try to make it so that it's not like he just, our main character doesn't just break a window and now he's in trouble. It's like, there's bigger things involved. There's bigger stakes for this kid, and the bigger life lessons to be learned. So you put that in a fantasy kind of situation, and then sprinkle in some Danny McBride. I think it's a good recipe for a movie.
Yeah. I think he's a comic genius.
Yeah. He's quick. He's so fast. I mean, he's just like, you talk with, you go, hey, maybe he could, and he's just like, maybe this could happen, and this could happen, and that will happen. And you're like, oh, wow, no, that's a good idea.
It must be great to work with someone that has that type of charisma, that can just translate into everything that he does, whether it's just a voice, if he's going to be a voice on the animation or not, on Trouble. But his voice is so charismatic, and also his physical presence is so charismatic. It just must be incredible to be working with that type of talent.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited for what the movies, I mean, again, the sandbox that we're in is being able to stand in that sandbox at this stage early and see it being actually, formed, is super exciting, because you see the pieces, like you're saying. Oh, wow. He just got great talent, good comedic timing and skills. And then we've got this solid script coming in. You can see that it's a perfect storm in a positive way.
Yeah.
And it's just knowing that he's sort of going to be along for the ride, sort of not less like, okay, I think I helped you guys out. See ya. Like, I mean, he's going to be involved. At what level, that's up to him, but to know that he's there as a soundboard for us to throw stuff off. I mean, it'll be great, because he's not going to be shy. He'll say, it doesn't work, and he'll explain why.
Yeah. It's an interesting time too to start an animation studio, when I think there is more than ever. And I'm 49 years old, so I grew up with animation, Saturday morning cartoons, and I've watched almost every Disney film with my kids. But I think now is a time when animation is mainstreamed for adults. So adults have accepted animation as an adult storytelling device that they connect with. And they're, it's not just like, okay, I got to watch this with my kids now.
Right.
For instance, the movie Soul, or, whatever, they're very sophisticated in the stories that they're telling, to the point where it appeals to everyone. And it's just really, it's cool to see that you are starting a studio where there's just so much possibility in terms of the audiences that you can reach. And it's no longer just for kids. Yeah,
I agree. I think I think adults are now seeing the benefit of storytelling through animation. And there's such a growing audience for that, and not just, the traditional big studio movies. They're also looking at a multitude of different styles and platforms for which animation is being used. And I think it's that's exciting. That's an exciting, as a new studio, you're going, ooh, well, what can our look of our movie be? Does it have, like, that's another whole aspect of, like, you don't want someone to look at a movie from Spire and go, oh, it's sort of like a Disney movie. Oh, it's kind of like sort of. Like, you want to be able to sort of get into a spot where people just see you for what you are, but still enjoy it as much as they would enjoy a Disney movie or a Dreamworks or Pixar film.
Mm-hmm.
But they can sit there and go, wow, that was really, really fun, enjoyable movie to watch. And it goes back to your point earlier, which is, it is the story. That's what grabs you. That's what makes you want to revisit or watch that movie again. I mean, I'll roll the clock back. I remember on Aladdin that parents were bringing their kids to see Aladdin, and they thought, well, it's an animated movie. It's Disney. Like, to your point, I'll bring the kids to the theater. I'll let them watch it, and I'll just zone out. But all of a sudden now they're watching it and getting entertained by Robin Williams, which they didn't expect. And they see this crazy guy that they all know who, that's Robin Williams, and he's doing Robin Williams things, and it's funny. Mm-hmm. And they're jokes for parents, not jokes for kids.
Right.
So they works on two levels, and I mean, that opened a lot of doors, I think, for an audience to say parents felt like, oh, wow, Aladdin was so much fun for me. I can't wait to see their next one. And, they had to wait a year and a half for it, but it was The Lion King. So then, that element of it became a big fun experience for them as well, is that they just start to buy into it. And I think that has just snowballed over the decades, I think, to where we are today, that there's many options for us as a new studio to entertain not just kids, but adults alike,
So where can listeners find you online? I see that you have an Instagram at michael.surrey, Surrey. Mm-hmm. Are you on Instagram much?
I am more now, I think, in the last couple of years. My digital footprint's probably very slow and small, but it's growing. I get reminded by a friend of mine constantly, like, oh, you need to get stuff out there. And I'm like, yeah. But I have Instagram, I'm found on there, as well as LinkedIn. Which was funny because when I was on that early, I mean, it seemed over maybe in the last 2 years, it's really kind of grown a lot more. I don't know if it's because I'm on it more, but it just seems like I'm going there more because that's where we're obviously finding talent out there. There's a lot of artists that we find through LinkedIn or Instagram, people we don't even know. You just go, oh, wow, check this out. And we just share it with each other. So those are the two platforms I'm using the most. I'm not on Twitter. And, Facebook is what it is. I just use it for just viewing friends and stuff. So it's not really a platform I use for work or anything like that.
Well, Michael, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thanks for sharing your story.
Brian, thank you. So great to talk with you.
Hey, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, I have a favor to ask. Can you go to wherever you listen to podcasts and leave me a review? Your feedback is what keeps this podcast going. You can also check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook with the handle @DreamPathPod. And as always, go find your dream path.